In June 1947, Preston Tucker promised Americans something they'd never seen before, a car that could change the rules of driving. Styled by the great Alex Tremulous, the Tucker 48 was hailed as the first completely new car in 50 years. Ads called it the car you have been waiting for. And for a moment, the hype was electric. Tucker raised millions selling dealership rights and accessories, secured a massive former Dodge plant in Chicago, and unveiled his handmade prototype, the Tin Goose, to a crowd of 5,000. But critics and regulators weren't convinced. Was it true innovation or just smoke and mirrors? Hit like, subscribe, and let's get this video trending. Hype it if you agree. When the Tucker 48 appeared in 1948, it wasn't a typical post-war sedan. It arrived with ideas that seemed decades ahead. First, the numbers. Only 51 cars were ever completed, and today 47 survive, making it one of the rarest American classics on the road. The engine setup was unusual. Tucker used the Franklin 0335 Flat 6, originally an aircraft motor. It displaced 334 cubic inches, about 5.5 liters, and produced around 166 horsepower at 3,200 RPM, with a huge 372 pound-feet of torque at just 2,000 revolutions per minute. That torque gave it real punch from a stop, even if the advertised top speed of 120 miles per hour was probably pushing things a bit. Physically, the car was enormous, a 128-inch wheelbase, length of 219 inches, nearly 79 inches wide, and about 60 inches tall, weighing close to 4,200 pounds. Despite that size, its design was surprisingly advanced. The layout featured rear engine, rear-wheel drive, plus independent suspension, choices that American manufacturers didn't seriously embrace for decades. Then came safety, a pop-out windshield, padded dash, and the famous Cyclops Eye third headlight that swiveled with the steering wheel. These were innovations that few drivers had ever imagined in 1948. But wait, what really set the Tucker 48 apart mechanically? Preston Tucker wasn't only trying to launch a car, he was trying to change how the auto industry worked. But chasing big dreams often means walking a fine line. The Tucker 48's future hinged not just on engineering, but on how Tucker raised the money to build it. He started by leasing the old Dodge plant in Chicago from the War Assets Administration. The catch? He had to raise $15 million by early 1947. To make it happen, Tucker offered dealership rights and pushed a $20 million stock issue. By mid-1947, he had about $17 million secured. Enough to keep the plant, but not nearly enough to crank out cars at scale. By 1948, the SEC launched a full investigation into Tucker's financial practices, sparking allegations of fraud that dragged him into lengthy court battles. Those cash-hungry strategies pulled the dream closer to collapse before the car itself could prove anything. Preston Tucker promised a car built around safety, and the Tucker 48 really did deliver on several ideas that were unheard of in 1948. But not everything he pitched ended up in the production cars. So which innovations were the real deal and which stayed on paper? First, the features that actually worked. The Tucker 48 had a pop-out windshield designed to eject in a crash instead of shattering into sharp glass. Inside, a padded dash and doors reduced injury risk, while the famous crash chamber under the dashboard offered a space where front passengers could dive for safety in an accident. Even the doors cut into the roofline weren't just stylish, they made entry easier and improved structural safety. Then came the Cyclops Eye, a third center headlight that turned with the steering wheel to illuminate curves. It worked, but it created legal problems. 17 states banned cars with more than 2 headlights, forcing Tucker to provide covers for the extra lamp. Not everything made it. Even a massive 589 cubic inch engine were dropped before cars hit the road. The Tucker 48 showed that radical safety features could work, but its boldest promises never left the blueprint stage. The Tucker 48 wasn't defeated on the test track. It was taken down in courtrooms and newspaper headlines. The real story of its downfall isn't just about design, but about how fraud charges and relentless media scrutiny shaped its fate. In 1948, the Securities and Exchange Commission launched a full investigation into Preston Tucker's financial dealings. By June, Tucker and 7 of his executives faced a sweeping indictment. The headlines made it sound like Tucker was running a scam, not a car company. The trial kicked off in October of 1949. But the process dragged on. Investors got nervous, suppliers hesitated, and car production slowed to a crawl. Negative press hammered the company week after week. By the time a jury acquitted Tucker and his associates of all charges on January 22, 1950, it didn't matter. The damage was irreversible. The company had already shut down operations on March 3, 1949, nearly a year before Tucker cleared his name. Not guilty in court didn't equal survival in business. Hype and sabotage collided here, and the fallout proved fatal to Tucker's dream. With only 51 Tucker 48s ever built, you'd think everyone would bring the same multi-million-dollar price tag. But the market tells a more complicated story, where value depends on originality, history, and condition. In August 2025, Pebble Beach saw a Tucker 48 from the Francis Ford Coppola collection sell for $1,545,000. Earlier, in 2024, another example went for about $1.38 million. While back in 2019, one soared to nearly $1.98 million. Clearly, not all Tuckers are valued the same. Condition levels explain a lot. According to Concept Cars, a Tucker in perfect condition can reach between $1.79 million and $2.92 million. Excellent cars usually fall between $1.35 and $1.79 million, while good examples range from $577,000 to $1.35 million. Drop to fair, and the price can slide even lower. Provenance also matters. Tucker number 1043, fully restored and backed by detailed documentation, set a record at $2.915 million in 2013. Meanwhile, cars missing original parts or carrying heavy modifications trade for far less. So, hype or substance? In this case, it's real money. But a Tucker's value is never just about rarity. It's about the story, the preservation, and how much collectors are willing to pay for a piece of American automotive myth. From the beginning, Tucker's schedule was as bold as his ideas, but deadlines slipped, development lagged, and optimism often outpaced reality. Even great innovations couldn't survive the crushing weight of broken timelines and lost trust. The Tucker Corporation took over the massive Chicago plant in 1946, expecting cars to roll out quickly. By mid-1947, though, Tucker was still wrestling with basic choices, like which engine would even power the car. Investors were already on board, dealerships had been sold, and accessories were being marketed, yet the actual production car remained unfinished. A prototype finally appeared in March 1948, followed by pilot cars. But when the factory doors closed on October 4, 1949, just 37 cars had been completed. Using leftover parts and unpaid help from approximately 300 employees, an additional 13 cars were assembled later, bringing the total to 50 production models plus the original prototype. Tucker's public promises didn't help. He predicted an output of 1,000 cars per day by mid-1948, a staggering figure that never materialized. Instead, delays drove up costs, eroded investor trust, and gave the press more fuel to question whether Tucker was delivering a revolution or running a mirage. By the time the legal battles cleared, credibility was gone. Innovation alone couldn't outrun the ticking clock. Preston Tucker had promised a sedan that could outpace Detroit's best.
The first completely new car in 50 years. This car differs from other cars in many features.
But once rubber hit the road, did the Tucker 48 actually back up the claims? The answer? Partly hype, but mostly solid performance for 1948. The Tucker 48 used the Franklin 0335 Flat 6, a converted aircraft engine displacing 334 cubic inches, 5.48 liters. It produced about 166 horsepower and an impressive 372 pound-feet of torque at just 2,000 revolutions per minute. That torque made the car pull hard from low speeds, which was crucial because the Tucker weighed about 4,200 pounds. Not exactly light, but still manageable with that much twist. As for speed, testing suggested 0 to 60 miles per hour in roughly 10 seconds, which was strong for a late 1940s sedan. Top speed estimates hover around 120 miles per hour, fast enough to rival some sports cars of the day, and certainly quicker than most family sedans. Of course, not everything lived up to early promises. Planned features like disc brakes, fuel injection, and an even larger engine were shelved before production. Still, the cars that rolled out performed well by the standards of the time. So, did it match the hype? Not entirely. But in an era of heavy, conservative sedans, the Tucker 48 was quick, responsive, and more than just talk. Part of the Tucker 48's allure comes not just from the cars that survive, but from the ones lost, wrecked, or left incomplete. These stories reveal how close innovation can come to slipping into myth. Take Tucker number 1027. In September 1948, it ran more than 1,300 miles at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway during endurance testing. At high speed, it suffered vapor lock, spun, and rolled twice. The pop-out windshield worked perfectly, saving the driver. Still, the car was written off as wrecked and stripped of its engine. When sold at a 1950 bankruptcy auction, it brought only $950, barely the cost of a used sedan. Another case is Tucker number 1018. Originally sold to a New York distributor, it was destroyed in a violent crash with a tree. While some parts like the engine and front body panels were salvaged for collections, the car itself was beyond saving. And then there's Tucker number 1050, the last one built. Finished in December 1948, it was cobbled together with borrowed trim and panels from other cars. Worse, it lacked a transmission, meaning it looked complete but never actually ran. These examples show the thin line between vision and reality. Tucker built brilliance, but some of it remained unfinished or lost. Out of the 51 Tucker automobiles built, 50 production models plus the prototype Tin Goose, 47 are still known to exist today. That means only 4 cars are confirmed destroyed or missing. For a startup project that collapsed so quickly, that survival rate is remarkable. Many survivors live in museums or major collections. The AACA Museum in Hershey, Pennsylvania, holds the Kamek Tucker Collection, the largest grouping in the world, which includes the prototype and production cars like number 1001, number 1022, and number 1026. The Swigert Automobile Museum in Pennsylvania also showcases 2 stars, number 1013 and the Tin Goose. Meanwhile, the Smithsonian Institution displays Tucker number 1039 in Washington, D.C., keeping the story visible to millions of visitors. Not every Tucker was so lucky. Some cars met tragic ends. Number 1027 was changed twice at Indianapolis during testing and was later written off as wrecked. Number 1018 was destroyed in a severe crash with a tree. Number 1023 was lost in a warehouse fire, and number 1042 reportedly ended its days near the Mississippi River, gone for good. So, what does this tell us? The fact that most Tuckers survive strengthens the case that this car was more than hype. Yet the missing few remind us how close history came to losing the story altogether. The Tucker 48's engine saga is a story of ambition colliding with reality. At first, Preston Tucker planned a radical 589 cubic inch flat six, mounted transversely at the rear. It was supposed to be water-cooled with the possibility of torque converters driving each wheel. Bold? Absolutely. Practical? Not at all. The design proved unworkable before production even began. That's when Tucker pivoted. Instead of scrapping the project, he bought air-cooled motors for about $1.8 million to secure the Franklin O335 Flat 6. Originally an aircraft engine for helicopters and small planes, it displaced 334 cubic inches. Engineers then reworked it heavily, converting it from air-cooled to water-cooled and changing much of its design to make it usable in a car. On paper, the modified engine looked promising. It produced 166 horsepower with a hefty 372 pound-feet of torque at just 2,000 revolutions per minute. It even survived a full throttle durability test of 150 hours, equal to nearly 18,000 road miles. But problems lingered. Overheating, unreliable valve trains at idle, and hard starting that required high voltage and long cranks. So did Tucker solve the problem or just patch it? The Franklin swap gave the 48 power, but at the cost of complexity and delays. Innovation, yes, but not without serious flaws. Tucker didn't just build cars, he built anticipation. And if demand alone could have saved the Tucker 48, the story might have ended differently. But the reality of production never matched the promises. On June 19, 1947, Preston Tucker unveiled the prototype in Chicago before a crowd of roughly 3,000 people. The event was electric. Dealers signed on quickly and investors were convinced this was the future of automobiles. Soon after, Tucker claimed agreements with more than 2,000 dealerships nationwide. On paper, that meant a massive distribution network ready to deliver cars across America. The problem? Cars were in short supply. Customers placed deposits, some even pre-purchasing accessories like radios and seat covers just to hold their place in line. Dealers, meanwhile, were advertising cars that didn't exist in production volume. This mismatch was more than just a hiccup, it chipped away at credibility. Then there was price. Early marketing suggested the car would cost about $1,000, a bargain for what was being promised. But the final production reality pushed closer to $4,000, putting the Tucker 48 in luxury territory. So, was the demand real? Absolutely. But without the supply to meet it, interest turned into frustration. The hype was genuine, but unfulfilled promises turned excitement into disappointment. Only 51 Tucker 48s were ever completed, yet their legacy echoes louder than many mass-produced cars. What Preston Tucker proved is that radical ideas, especially those tied to safety and driver focus, couldn't be ignored forever. His car wasn't just about style, it was about questioning what an automobile should do for the person inside. Look at the list of features he pushed. A pop-out windshield designed to save lives in crashes. A safety chamber was an early concept that predated the crumple zone seen in later decades. Padded dashboards, decades before they became mandatory. A centrally mounted Cyclops headlight that turned with the steering wheel, an ancestor to today's adaptive headlights. Independent suspension on all four wheels, offering smoother, more controlled handling, and of course, the bold rear engine layout, a choice that companies like Porsche would continue to champion in performance cars. Tucker didn't invent every one of these, but he stitched them into one audacious package years ahead of mainstream acceptance. The car's cultural impact is just as lasting. The 1988 film Tucker, the Man and His Dream reintroduced the story to millions, using detailed replicas and props to dramatize his struggle. Modern builders like Rob Ida Automotive have even crafted contemporary, Tucker-inspired recreations, showing how the fascination refuses to die. In the end, the Tucker 48 wasn't just a car, it was a challenge to everything Detroit stood for. One man dared to break the rules, and for a brief moment, it looked like he might succeed. But was Tucker crushed by rivals who feared his ideas, or undone by promises too bold to keep? That question has never been fully answered, and maybe that's why the legend refuses to die. It lingers in museums, in auctions, and in the imaginations of car lovers everywhere. So, what do you think? Revolution or hype? Tell us below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos that take you through automotive history.